If we're reconvening after a short break.
Quarter to 11.
Oh, quarter to 11. I'm just feeling too good to be here.
Let's go in executive session and get a little bit back.
No, let's, since they're ready, let's go ahead and talk about it. It doesn't have to be-
Right, we're gonna talk about the memorandum of agreement between Fort Clark Springs and Fort Clark Springs Community Council, and this is really just in reference to Fort Clark Days?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess go ahead with what Fort Clark Community Council proposes? Is that the way you want to begin this?
That would be great. I had originally met with Jody, and she took a cursory look at it, and there were a couple things that were a concern to her, so I will address those. The first one is going to be item number 5. Fort Clark Springs Association.
How- How about if we just go down the list and we can,
Go down the list, okay?
right,
All right, Fort Clark Springs Association and Community Council agree to form a partnership to plan, present, and follow up the outcome of Fort Clark Days, a 2-day event on the grounds of Fort Clark Springs Association. Number 2, Fort Clark Springs Association will provide a location in the administration building with computer and printer access for the use by the chairperson, secretary, and treasurer of the event.
okay, do we have a spot they can use like that doesn't have access to everything else on the fort?
Yeah, I think, did she tell you? a
I
specific
think she may have
place?
spoken to Norma about where that would be, but I don't know where that is.
The boardroom would be a place that I could think of right off the top of my head that wouldn't interrupt or disrupt anybody else's day.
They
What about
have, they wouldn't
the,
have access to the computer.
What about that room that's right off the admin with, I guess, you?
There's the member services room, there's
Yeah.
the room right behind that too. Would you be providing your computer
No.
or?
No, Norma wanted a Ford computer. Is that an issue?
Well, it is if we have to set up security for you, passwords and all that kind of stuff.
What kind of access are you needing to the
But
computer?
the idea behind that is that anything that's created then would be saved on that computer. And so we're not rewriting history every year. So that we would have all of
So-
those documents in one place.
So a continuity type thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and the other thing is a central use, because people were doing stuff at home, and some other committee was doing something else on their home computer, so this way it'd be all in one place.
Okay,
Can we set up something with a limited access?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, we could.
And I'm Paulina McBride, I'm the treasurer, and so I would need to be able to use whatever Excel spreadsheet or whatever you use.
So you would just need to have basically Microsoft Word and Excel?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that pretty well taken care of?
I think
Good
we
with
could,
me?
I think we could.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, number 3, Fort Clark Springs Association will be responsible for advertising, fundraising, preparing public service announcements, and managing the Fort Clark Days website. These activities will increase year-round exposure and facilitate potential new property and membership purchases at Fort Clark Springs. And the person she was looking at for manning that was David Box.
Okay, we could do David Box, but in conjunction with like the website information and whatnot. We do have somebody that is fairly good with websites.
Okay,
So we could utilize her in that. She's a high school student, but
okay,
she still does some stuff for us, on an hourly basis.
She'd help David out.
okay, great.
Yeah.
One question on that, because Fort Clark Days did have another website that was done by, Debbie Isaacs.
Mhm.
Would they be able to work on that website also? Not only the page on Fort Clark Springs Association website, but would she then be able to go ahead and work on that other one?
We could ask her.
Okay,
What other one are you talking about?
the one that Debbie Isaacs had purchased
Okay,
and,
Debbie set up a Facebook page for the golf committee.
right.
Okay,
That's
Yeah,
different
no,
from,
Debbie also did the Fort Clark Days website. We
Okay.
actually have a fortclarkdays.org
Okay,
website.
that's the one you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
because we couldn't have access to everything, we couldn't put everything on the Fort Clark Springs Association Fort Clark Days page. One of the things that was a problem last year was we wanted to get the icon on there for making a donation by PayPal. And Fort Clark Springs Association would not allow us to do that on that page. So that this was a way that we could solicit sponsorships and donations as well.
It sounds,
We might be able to get a high school student, and you have a high school student,
That's what
right?
she is, yeah.
Okay.
we really don't need two web pages. We need one principal web page, really,
Right.
right?
You can put a,
What if we used your web page as the principal web page with just a link
So, yeah.
between the Fort Clark Springs? You know, a little bit of information on it and then directing you to go to their website.
I thought there was a.
There is a link.
There's a link
There is a
already.
link on it.
Okay.
I mean, there ought to be a splash or
Yeah.
something on our web page, but
But it goes to
It
the.
goes-
Yeah, the link
Okay.
goes to us, yeah, it does.
So it's
I
already.
think there is a
already-
little bit on the Fort Clark page.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that static page is up to date, and then the link to go to fortclarkdays.org.
Okay. All right, now, so you want Fort Clark to be responsible for doing all the Fort Clark Days advertising?
Yes,
What do you mean by the fundraising part?
the fundraising and the sponsorships, raising the money to put on the Fort Clark Days.
Soliciting the businesses, is that what you mean?
Yep.
Yes.
Do we have some, I mean, with our limited, well, we might have a deal by then, but who knows? Fundraising, preparing, public service, managing the website.
Can we do
Is
that
community
this
council
year?
going to do are you not doing any fundraising or?
The original intent that Jody had was that it would all be raised in-house, kind of sponsorships. And the reason for the sponsorships was then that rather than just the 2-day advertising during the Fort Clark Days event, she could offer, for example, the casino, Lucky Slots Casino, or whatever it is, the peekaboo thing. She could offer them year-round advertising and on a billboard down on 90 sponsors of Fort Clark Days, where we can't do that with Fort Clark Days event. We can't offer that kind of year-round sponsorship. So to grow the event and grow the amount of money that's coming in, because it costs about $15,000 to put on the event, and then that's the cost to put on the event, and then whatever we give to restoration after that, you know, is basically the profit.
So my concern is having people available for all these fundraisings, obtaining sponsorships, doing all that kind of thing, whether we even have staff or volunteers to do that. And
That
when you
was
say
something-
Fort Clark Springs, you're thinking of staff.
Right.
And unless we're looking for 2 positions now, an accountant and a DO, so these people are already doing double duty. I
Right.
don't know.
well, it should be,
It was gonna be David Box.
right.
Yeah,
but
because
You want him
whoever
to do
has-
it himself.
Right.
All of it.
Right.
However he organized it.
And he should be doing that for the fort anyway. It should be
Well, I
kind
know
of a
that.
hand-in-glove thing.
I was just asking how much of a fundraising responsibility we were adding. The rest of this stuff
Just
was
wanted
right
to
in line with
describe
what
she
he
wasn't
does.
complaining.
Right, I was just asking for an explanation because I know in having to obtain sponsorships for things like the Lost Morris tournament and stuff, it's a very time
It is time
consuming.
consuming.
And those guys go out and visit tons of
Mhm.
businesses around here, so I was making sure that we didn't say, yeah, we'll do it, and then go,
Right,
oh, we can't
exactly.
do it.
Exactly.
So,
The other thing to add, I have a whole list of phone numbers, contacts, and all this that I could sit with David from last year. Debbie Isaac took care of all that listing because she did this treasury job. So she has all these companies, names, contacts, so I have all of that. I could sit with David. And by the way, we need to get started
right.
tomorrow.
Yeah, could you
Yeah.
guys keep a report to the board on how we're doing on this so we don't get down to, March 3rd and say, oh my.
Yeah, really. Everything that has been done in the past, all the fundraising people that we have contacted in the past, all the advertising that's gone out in the past, there are notebooks that have all of that information in it. We don't have volunteers anymore to support it. We just cannot get the volunteers to do a lot of these jobs anymore. So we were hoping that, by getting more, and originally, the conversations were between Jody and Sue and Norma, that this would be the way to get more done. And with all of Fort Clark Springs Association behind the sponsorships, hoping to bring in more money rather than just the limited amounts that we have brought in so far.
Well, and in conjunction with Frontier Christmas and the Goat Cook-Off and anything else that we're doing, the pitch could be made for all of them at one time a little bit more strongly for one than another. But the sponsorship, don't forget, you know, you'll also be here doing Frontier Days, and you'll also be advertised during these other things as well, possibly.
So I could call David Monday and get with him.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, he's pretty much aware that he's gonna be involved in
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was
He
pleased.
already had some ideas too.
Yeah, he's got lots and lots
Yeah,
of
he's got
ideas.
some good
So,
ideas,
yeah.
really good. That's part of something, if we get a recreation committee started,
Yeah.
they can help.
Yeah, we do, that's a good
That's
point.
true.
If we get a recreation committee started, they
help
can,
David out on this
Yes.
stuff too.
and maybe one of their, primary responsibilities this time of the year would be working
Help
with
out
community
with
council
birthdays.
on Fort
That
Park.
would be awesome.
Yeah,
Number 4 was another problem that Jody actually had. All donations received will be deposited into Community Council's Fort Park Days account at the Bank and Trust. The reason why we said that is we are the 501c3. You can get more donations coming in if somebody knows it's going to be tax deductible.
Okay.
Her disagreement with that was that they were sponsorships, and so therefore there would be no tax deductibility from it. However, there is still a tax deductibility from it. Even though you're advertising for somebody, that advertising is not going to take up that full donation amount. So there still is some tax deductibility. So people need to donate into, people do need to donate into a 501c3 so that they will continue to have their tax deductibility.
What was Jody, Jody's concern was, what
I
did
don't
she
know where
want
she was
him?
going, she wanted control of all the money.
Okay.
I don't know where it was gonna be put.
Jody really didn't like having individual accounts.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why, because I think that we know they're there, we just,
and we have it already established.
Fort Park Days account is
Yeah,
already
there's
established.
some 4,000 or, there's.
Go
at
in that
least-
account is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Go into that account, and then our treasurer keeps track of everything and notifies everybody and pays the bills out of that, as we're going along.
I don't see a problem with that. It looks like a good idea, because it separates the money from the fort a little
From the
bit, and it's
fort.
for that one,
Exactly.
whatever that entity is, whether it's Fort Clark Days, whether it's Oktoberfest, whether it's a golf tournament, whether it's a horseshoe fishing contest. It's not mixed in with the general fund anywhere.
Right.
It's money separate.
Exactly.
I don't really
And
have,
then actually, in the bottom line of the whole thing, in the end, it ends up in the fort's coffer because you make the donation to the preservation.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
it eventually gets
Right,
back, it gets into the fort anyway.
I don't really have a problem with that. I was more concerned about what Jody thought about it
Right.
and why
Why
she
she-
had those.
She-
you know, 'cause
she had
She was
like
very
a-
much, she was very money conscious.
Yes,
and
she was
wanted to
very
know
money
where
conscious,
everything went.
yes, absolutely, she was very money conscious. And her thing was that there would be no tax deductibility, and so therefore the money did not need to go into a 501c3.
and I
And-
disagree,
but
I
it's
think it
still-
would be.
It still would be going into
But
501c3.
I see no problem with it
Okay,
going in
number
there.
5
That-
then?
keep it go.
Fort Clark Springs Association will provide FCD event insurance for the 2-day event, approximately $2,500 with inclusion of New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, and the chili cook-off events. She said she would not do all 4 events, she would only do the 2-day event. I have just emailed Warren Blesh, and to do New Year's Eve events separately and these other things separately, it's going to be expensive. He gave us a quote of approximately $2,500 for all 4 events.
And what is approximately just Fort Clark Days?
I don't know approximately for Fort Clark Days. I don't have a breakdown on that.
Now, when you have,
I don't disagree with this. I think $2,500 is not a big deal to pay for Fort Clark Days in conclusion with these other things.
Right, and the other breakout on that was that Jody thought that New Year's Eve could be a fundraiser for a different committee. So for example, Community Council could do New Year's Eve dance, and it's a fundraiser strictly for Community Council
that's,
rather than Fort Clark Days. the Valentine's Day event is going to be from Old Quarry. They're doing a dinner theater. So that would be a fundraiser for Old Quarry.
Yes.
And so it would not then go into the monies raised would not go into Fort Clark Days, was her feeling on that. And then the chili cook-off could be recreation or
They're
RV
more
park.
likely to
That's the
come
RV
back to
park.
us for insurance on this also, so why
Right,
not
we're
just-
gonna have to have
just do
insurance
the
on all of
umbrella?
it. We're gonna have, what I would propose, or what I would suggest, is that Fort Clark foots the bill for the whole insurance, and then each one of those committees reimburses Fort Clark for their portion of the insurance. And I think they figured last year that $300 or $500 was the cost of insurance per each one of those extra events. I think is how Debbie figured it. But to go out and for us to actually get insurance for New Year's Eve on our own, even through Warren Blesch, it will be prohibitive.
How much
To the
is, how
point
much is
where,
prohibited?
I'll let you know in a few minutes. Can I get back to you on that? Because Warren Blesch,
Okay,
and I apologize.
my concern was the same as Jody's. We are, you know, we're talking about a memorandum of agreement for Fort Clark Days.
Right,
These particular events do not raise money for Fort Clark Days.
they have in the past.
If they raise money for Fort Clark Days, it's one thing, but
Right.
if Chili Cook-Off raises money for the RV park, or Valentine's Day raises money for Old Quarry Society, that doesn't have anything to do with Fort Clark Days.
Right.
So I think we need to work that part out first. If they were all fundraisers for Fort Clark Days, then I would have no objection to paying
Okay.
for the insurance.
All right. Actually, it looks like it's not that. For New Year's Eve, policy minimum premium is $220, depending upon your liability, and then having the liquor liability in there as well. So let's just, but I don't know the cost for the Fort Clark Days itself. But we could just write it in there, that just the cost of
Well,
the
the thing
two-day
to do
event.
would be to talk to Warren and have him give a blanket price for doing all the events.
That's the 2,500.
That's the
Isn't
2,500.
that-
Is that what that is actually?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then break it down, so like you said, that each organization who's having the other fundraisers
Then could repay.
reimburse the fort for
I think that was
that
probably
part of
the,
insurance.
Okay, now, we do run into a problem on that a little bit, in that
Okay.
you're setting a precedent. So that everybody who wants to have a special event on the fort's gonna front the money, and then we're gonna hope to get the money back if it's, you know, from our organizations. So you're setting a precedent forever in the future by doing it
But
this
this,
way.
but
This
if
is-
if we put this under the blanket of Fort Clark Days,
Mhm.
well,
it's only
it's,
for the Fort Clark Days.
Okay, but these other two are probably not for Fort Clark Days.
The Valentine's Day for sure is not Fort Clark
Yes,
Days, that is Old
Valentine's Day
Quarry. That
is Old Quarry, and Old Quarry is their own independent organization.
Right, I know that.
So I don't think we even,
okay, how about this? Why don't we just do this for Fort Clark Days? And then take it under consideration about working with, these other events, community council is involved in?
Not
Valentine's.
Not for
Okay.
sure, not for sure yet.
I think the way community council is run at present, everything it does pretty well benefits the fort, correct? There's
I
not,
hope so.
Yeah,
So let me-
scholarships,
so,
parades.
right, so there's no reason for the fort and community council not to be holding hands every day.
I hope.
Right. Well, New Year's Eve, and you said that's a benefit for community council.
Well, if we do it, that was Jody's idea, that be a fundraiser for community council rather than, in the past, it's always been for Fort Clark Days. The money raised has been for Fort Clark Days, it's gone into the pot at the end. Since the fort was gonna be doing the fundraising and the sponsorship, well, she was gonna be doing sponsorship, she clarified between sponsorships and fundraising. Since she was gonna be doing sponsorships, that would leave other organizations to do fundraising. She was not doing any fundraising. And so therefore, maybe there would be other groups out there that would want to have some of these events to raise funds for their organizations, was the idea behind it. I see sponsorships and fundraising all in the same basket, so.
It's what we wanna do now because we're here.
But, New Year's Eve in the past has always been money raised for Fort Clark Days.
Well,
What
that's-
would you use
that's-
it otherwise
And that's
for?
what the agreement says,
Yeah.
for Clark Days.
Fort Clark
and-
Days.
Yes.
Which is a specific time and event,
Right.
where these other ones are not
Yeah,
part of Fort Clark Days, so I think,
you need to
you
take
know, that
those
they
out.
need to be taken out in
Okay.
that respect.
Right.
Now,
We're
if they
taking
want
out-
to come to us individually,
However, we may look at it, once it's explained more, we could look at it differently in the future.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
include it
for
or not.
now-
but
But
you-
for right now, to get this moving forward, we'll do Fort Clark
Okay,
Day.
for the 2 events, and then that will also mean then that, it's not covered just those 2 days. They give us a window beforehand for setting up and a window
Yes.
afterwards for breaking down. Okay, so we'll take that, Fort Clark Springs will provide the Fort Clark Days event insurance for the 2-day event.
yes.
Awesome. Okay, number 6, Fort Clark Springs Association Maintenance Department will build a walking bridge to join the area across the creek to Main Historical Area. This new area will be the site for returning cannon. This had been something that we were going to be doing last year, but our weekend was in conflict with so many other things going on around. And the reason for that is Fort Clark Days is always the first Friday and Saturday in March. That first Friday was not in March, so it pushed us to the second weekend. And so there are annual events that happen on that second weekend. So a lot of our reenactors could not come. So we didn't use the area across the creek.
I mean, on the Highway 90 side, right
On the
there where the
Highway
cannon
90
is.
side, yeah, on the Highway 90 side, between the Highway 90 and the creek itself. And one of the things that we wanted to put out there was the cannon shooting parallel to the highway rather than across the creek.
Shooting at Rio Grande.
Yeah, shooting at Rio Grande Electric. One of the benefits of that is that the cannon, when it shoots, it's actually about a 45-degree angle coming out with that sound for the shock and percussion. So it helps to protect the businesses across the street. You also have the cannon out over on that side, and we're hoping to get a teepee out on that side to draw in traffic that's driving by. And so that way you
I'm just
have-
worried about the maintenance department being able to build a walking bridge with
Well-
an inshore.
Yeah,
Wasn't that
they had
something-
planned to do it last year, and they had planned to do it the week before the event, and I canceled it the last minute when I found out that our cannon was not insured last year, so none of the cannon could come. So that just totally wiped out the need for that area across the creek. They had actually planned to build it. It is a temporary bridge. They can't stay up there because of flooding and things like
Right.
that, but it would just be a temporary one. I did get a hold of Fort Hood to ask if they had any of that military equipment, that you could put the bridge over, and they don't. Or no, I didn't get a hold of Fort Hood. I got a hold of David Barrera, who is with the Military Preservation League or whatever, and they're here every year. And nobody has any vehicle like that could, do that bridge.
Did you check with Warren as far as making sure that the insurance he's aware that we're building a temporary bridge? Because the liability
I did
attached to
not.
that, attached to that is huge.
Okay.
Because if someone falls off that bridge into the creek,
Mhm.
a child, or the bridge collapses, or,
Right.
they do everything they possibly can to do it right, you're exposing the fort to a huge liability. So we need to, you might want to follow up with Warren
I
on
would be
that.
okay with that, except all those answers that we don't have.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, let me go ahead.
I mean, I think it's a really good idea for the people to have it as a convenience way, but we gotta let Warren know that because it might increase the cost of the insurance.
Okay.
Since we are building the bridge. Now, if somebody else was coming in, constructing it, putting it up for us, they would have to provide their own certificate of insurance for it, listing the fort as an additional insured.
Very
But
good.
in this case, we are on the hook if anything happens on that bridge.
Which side of the concrete bridge will it be, towards Rendezvous Park or the other
South.
side?
It'll be toward Rio
South.
Grande.
Toward Rio Grande.
And I guess there were some pilings still there from when there was a bridge going across there previously.
There's some on the other side.
They're still down in Rendezvous Park, they're still
Oh,
down that
okay,
way.
no, they would be
Yeah,
the
I've never
same.
seen any on
Yeah.
that side.
Okay, very good. All right, Fort Clark Springs Association will be responsible for electrical output to meet the demands. This has been a problem every single year, that we don't have enough electricity to support more food vendors and more people coming in who use the electricity. Rio Grande did come in last year and set up some additional stuff for us, but our infrastructure needs to have more done. Our infrastructure really needs to have more done for Fort Clark Days, and I don't know.
Well, we need to kind of draw out a plan of where we could do it and run pad mount, or like trailer house services over to different areas to work off of. And when we could do that, you know, he's got a trencher down there, we could trench underground and make some disconnects in certain areas people could work into, but he's gonna have time to do it and the money to do it.
And you have to let them know how many you need. Now, that, we have to look at expense on
Right.
that.
Yeah.
If you guys do develop a plan, let us know and we'll be glad to help with it.
Right, we need
We
to,
probably need your help with a plan.
I think so, for sure.
What I mean by plan is just location, you know, the locations you're gonna need power.
right, you need to lay it out for vendors need so much area.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we can spread the vendors out so they're not necessarily all in one spot. I would
Yeah.
think that would be advantageous, so you didn't have to walk from one end of the fort to the other. You get a hot dog and a Twinkie and a Coke, you could
Right.
get some around the area. And then
Just
allow
not in the
for,
historical area.
right, but then allow for, you know,
A food court, so.
extending it later on, making
Yeah.
things big enough so that we could expand on it later on. If, the hope would be we would need stuff down through those areas.
Right.
So you'll have to lay out a plan to give to Phil and us, I guess, so that we can see how many amps of service we need everywhere to pull off of, and that way people won't have extension cords around 8 miles.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to know exactly what you think you need.
Okay, so I can have Charles Fields work on that, because he was the one who did the food vendors last year.
All right.
And then he can come up with a plan, and then, do we take the plan, what do we do with the plan? Go to see Mr. Laws first, come
I would
here
like to
first?
see it before. I mean, I think the
Okay.
Yeah, I
board
think
should,
we-
I definitely
Okay.
want to
Yeah,
see it.
Yeah, not to do anything, but just, you know, like a,
Here's what we need,
Okay.
and then we could go to them and see will it work.
okay, very good.
And how much it's gonna cost.
Okay, very good.
Because that's really important, so.
And the bands around the museum were also without electric, so.
They were without electricity this past year, something
was
happened up
nice.
at the museum that did not support the bands.
Well, it rained too.
So-
It had to go indoors.
So what actually happened there, I'm not really sure.
No, it rained. They were out there and they were performing until the rain started, and then that's very bad for their amps.
Yes, it
and-
is, yeah.
So they went inside because of the rain last year.
Okay. Fort Clark Springs Association is responsible for making sure grounds are safe for participants and visitors.
We have to like go out there and grade all the rocks that'll fit through a 9/16 wrench and not a 5/8 one, or what? I mean, how's that? That's kind of a broad statement there.
Well, I think that's just that,
I
we're
think
not
it's
going to
already
let,
done
yeah,
though.
we
We
do.
have our maintenance out there, just
I-
making
We
sure
do,
the trash
yeah.
is picked up.
And
do
like
it
We have
every
our
day.
security out there,
Yeah, and
right?
like the handrail was put in last year, I think, over at Seminole Hall.
Well, just
Oh, and
bring,
going down the steps.
I guess bring areas to our notification ahead of time so we can
Right,
keep up,
absolutely.
not be last minute.
Community Council will assume leadership role in the chairperson and coordinator's position. Both Fort Clark Springs Association and CC will seek volunteers to assist the coordinator.
So how's this gonna work with David Box? Because he's,
David Box won't have to worry about all these other coordinators. Our chairperson will worry about, on number 10, where you see the following coordinator positions need to be filled. Our chairperson will coordinate all of those people. And then our chairperson will work with David Fox along with Helena, who's the treasurer, and Gina Forrester, who is the secretary. Those positions have already been filled for Fort Clark Days. They are actually secretary and treasurer of Community Council as well. We just thought that rather than having multiple people be secretaries and treasurers, since it's a Community Council sponsored event, that we would bring it more in-house with that.
okay, so you're gonna have a leadoff hand running Fort Clark Days that will communicate with the DO and let her know what we need or how we're coming along and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So really Fort Clark Springs is not gonna have a daily role in all this?
No,
Okay.
no.
It's David.
Yeah, it really is not. Fort
just
Clark Springs has
just
a daily
David's
role.
part.
Just
Yeah,
David.
David, David's got a
Well,
daily
and he's
role.
gonna be coordinated by you guys.
Yeah. Well,
If we, yes,
He'll report.
if this memorandum goes through, yes.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's the assumption that he won't have to do Fort Clark Days on his own. You're gonna tell him what he needs to do and solicit help and ideas and advice and all that kind of
You've
stuff.
got the experience, this is basically his first one, so.
And you will make sure that he knows exactly what you want from him, because it's hard for him. People are asking him to do things all the time,
Right.
but they don't clarify.
Well, and I think it needs to be clarified too, that if he is asked to do something, it comes from the chairperson and nobody else on the
That's-
committee.
Right, that's, he's not gonna be jerked around by everybody on the deal.
Exactly.
And I
It's gotta
think,
come
and I
from
think
you
it
guys.
should be in writing,
Okay,
because, you know, verbal is fine, verbal's
Right.
fine, but you know, it goes in here and
Right,
some of it
exactly.
stayed here and the rest of it went out here,
Right.
and what, I don't remember.
well, and that's very
So I
true.
think it should be in
Because he's
writing.
gonna be very busy anyway with all of his other areas
Yeah,
of
so it
responsibility.
should be,
Yeah,
you
I
can
agree
have a
with that.
folder, if you will, of
He
foreclosure.
will actually have some specific notebooks as well, like the advertising notebook and the fundraising
Yeah.
notebook. He'll have those. Sue did a phenomenal job of getting a lot of that stuff together, so. But the following coordinator positions need to be filled. Now, some of these positions, maybe some people from the recreation committee, living historians does not need to be filled because that's me. I don't know if we'll be able to get Sue Martin to do school days if that's all she has to do. She's kind of an expert at that.
Who is Charles, right?
If somehow or other we can improve the infrastructure, yes. I think that he would be willing to do it again. Charles Fields would be willing to do it again. We probably already have somebody for the 5K run. Phillips, significant other is his wife. She's a manager.
Fiance,
Pardon me?
fiance,
Fiance, okay. Yeah, Phillips' fiance, I think, has volunteered for the 5K run. We have,
Yvette?
Berta Howells, I think, has volunteered for the volunteers. And then the New Year's Eve dance and the Valentine Day dinner, that's Old Quarry.
So you'll let us know when you get people or need people for all these things, but you guys are taking care of them.
We're
Okay.
trying to get as many people, in fact, we can start advertising as soon as we have a chair. Now, whether Norma will come back in and be the chair, you know, with the conditions of the memorandum being approved and everybody being on board with it, you know, she may well come back in and do that. Currently, there's $3,750.98 in the Fort Clark Days account to support the 2015 event. $595 has been prepaid for the arts and crafts for 2015. We always keep an X number of dollars back for the next year. So,
Is that
Seed
money
money.
that David will have, be able to
Yes.
get access to
well,
if necessary?
he needs to let the treasurer know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he
yeah.
will have, he
He will have
can,
access to,
if he needs to
if
buy
he needs
things or.
supplies and stuff like that, absolutely, that's what it's there for.
But it needs to be with your approval, right?
Yeah, well, he will have to ask us for a check,
Right.
and so then, you know, at that point, Helena will say, no, you can't have that money, or yes, you can have that money.
It's all mine.
Yeah. We also have money still in community council's account too, from a year ago that was set aside to help support the days as well. We have not used all of it. We only used about $600 this past year. The projected cost of $15,000 for the two-day event and includes the following expenses. The really big expense there is $5,000. It costs us $5,000 to bring the living historians here. That's what it costs. Even if you went to nothing else going on and only had a school day and then a Saturday of just living historians, that's $5,000. If you had a school day only, your living historians would probably come in the night before and then maybe leave after school day, so you cut down some costs. But for the whole event, the scholarships was started last year, and there were 2 scholarships of Mr. and Miss Fort Clark Days from the high school. One half of that was paid by Fort Clark Springs Association itself, and the other half came out of the Fort Clark Days profits. So if that's something that we want to continue, then we would ask Fort Clark Springs Association to pay out $500 toward that
You
also.
said profits of what?
Fort Clark Days profits.
In other words, you use that money in Fort Clark's name.
Right.
For the scholarship.
Yeah,
When we get all of our money in for Fort Clark Days, then we would write out a check for $500 for Fort Clark to the recipient, to the scholarship recipient. And no, one half of that was paid actually by Fort Clark
right,
Sports
the reason,
Association.
because my thought on this would be that if we get out of that, because we're already taking up the insurance
Uh-huh.
and taking, doing all these other things
Right.
which are costing money,
Yep.
that you people wouldn't have to pay, that I think we should be able to, I would see us back out of that.
Okay,
I don't. It's $500, right?
it is $500.
Well, now you're
Now you-
already paying
You're up to
$3,000.
$3,000.
Well, the 2,500 is gonna be
It's gonna be
less
reduced.
because
It
we're
is
only
gonna be
covering
reduced.
for Clark Days.
Even
Yeah,
so, but it.
But still, you got that 500, you got the cost of building the bridge,
Right.
manpower, materials, which is probably going to be significant.
Mhm.
Allison, did that cost include having the cannons?
Yes, it did.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
wanted to make sure.
it did. That cost of this year included the cannon.
Yeah, because we're talking, the bridge is probably gonna be a significant expense,
Well, we're gonna have to approve that.
yeah, separately.
Yeah.
And you're adding 500 out, we're picking up the insurance, the electrical, we're gonna be end up paying for that electrical part of it. If
Yeah,
we,
we-
for redesign, so, I mean, I kinda agree with that, with what Bill is saying, because we're picking up a lot of the expense
Incurring
of
a lot
Fort
of
Clark
expenses
Springs.
that,
Yeah, to add more to it, just for,
Now, that doesn't mean that in the future it couldn't happen, but I think this first
This
time, I
first
think
year.
we need to get
Okay,
out of that.
so
Yeah.
then should we just make it all paid for out of Fort Clark Days profits?
Yeah, and I mean, first we have to decide if we want to continue doing it.
Right,
They
yeah.
just had that idea last year because they had pretty good money from the year before.
Was it a good turnout?
not this year.
No.
It was the weather.
No.
Yeah, we had bad weather for Fort Clark Days
No,
itself.
no, I mean for
Oh.
the Mr. and Mrs.
I think
Oh, they had
8 to 10?
8, Scott, yeah, they only had, and they wound up with 6 candidates.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, 6 candidates, and they picked 2 of them.
No, the idea is not bad, but I think right now, I think the Ford needs to stop, incurring as much expense as they
How much of the
can.
$5,000 does the fort incur? Any of it?
For the living historians, no, not as long as we get that fundraising and sponsorships in. Okay, the Fort has never incurred any expense with Fort Clark Days other than somebody paid for the electrical this past year, getting our GEC to bring that in. I don't know if they did it out of the kindness of their heart, but increased
As a
electricity.
sponsorship, why not?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We'd rather-
I don't remember if we did do it out of the kindness of our heart or not, but
I don't remember.
we probably
either.
did, but,
Yeah.
we never charged the labor piece of it, which is the more expensive piece, but we never charged the labor. All we would ever do is ask you to pay for the materials.
Okay.
But when it's the Fourth, we don't charge labor.
And then, the maintenance department does an awful lot of work, for Fort Clark Days as far as
Especially
going
after
around.
it's over.
Yeah,
Yes.
they do an
Clean up
immense amount.
massive.
But as far as actually paying out dollars, Fort Clark Springs Association has never paid out dollars since I've been here.
Except
But
for
I
the
have a very
scholarship.
short history.
Except for the scholarship last year.
Except for the
Yeah.
scholarship last year, that was the first
But
time.
now we've incurred a lot more expense.
Right,
Yeah,
And once we have the electrical, assuming we can afford to do what you want us to do, we
Mhm.
might only be able to do part of it
Right.
this year, part of it next year, but that would be already in place then
exactly.
from now on, so we would not have that output this year.
Exactly.
And even with the walking bridge, if they build it as a component, they might be able to store part of that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then, so that's a reduced expense, and then maybe we can do something with it next year.
Right. The benches that I'm requesting.
Excuse me,
Yes,
before
ma'am.
you move on.
Yes.
We keep talking about the electrical, but there's no electrical in the list.
that's right.
No, this, because because we only base this on what we have had in the past, how much it costs to actually put on the event.
But you have
Which
it
is
listed under
$15,000.
number 7. so
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, the big expense is
Yeah,
going to
we'll
be,
responsible for electrical
Right.
output.
Yeah,
yeah.
so the electrical is just on number 7, yes.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't have any guess about.
We don't have any
Yeah.
guesses on how much that would cost
No.
at all, no ma'am.
And that,
Okay.
once we get a list of what they want, which can be presented to Riverview Electric, then we'll get a quote.
Then we can decide whether it's gonna be done or not.
Well, I understand, but I'm,
Well, the electric in the past has probably best been pulled out of existing meters, so there was
Yes,
no way to tell
Right,
Right.
yeah.
how it was
So you
done.
have no idea how much the
No, you
electric.
probably just have a little blip
I-
for, right?
I brought
that
it
month.
up because you have an event insurance on that list.
Right,
And it's
yes.
over in number whatever.
Yeah.
So I brought it up.
Oh, yeah, because we paid event insurance last year, and actually, we paid $3,500. Out of Fort Clark Days funds, we paid $3,500 event insurance last year for all 4 events. This year's event will be cheaper even for all 4, and with the Canon, we had more time, and plus we now have an event behind us. So it was gonna be cheaper this year.
Out of curiosity, have you ever contacted Fort Hood to get a cavalry unit? They used to
Yes.
maintain one.
Yes, the cavalry unit had a bad experience there a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. But Russell Knoll saw them a couple weeks ago, and they want to come back. So we'll be contacting the cavalry unit. The Gatling gun will be here this year. The museum, last year what happened with the Gatling gun, which was approved because that's US government. What happened with the Gatling gun last year was they had a change of command at Fort Hood, and the person at the museum was very overwhelmed with everything that was going on and didn't get paperwork turned in time. Okay, but that's one of the costs. We give them a stipend for coming down, and then we house them. So most of your living historians, $1,500 to $1,800 plus the additional insurance rider goes straight to the camels. That's first off the top. And if we don't have the
I
camels.
love the camels.
if we
I
don't
love
have
the camels, too.
I know, if we don't have the camels, I mean, people say, well, cut that expense out. But oh my gosh, if you don't have the
Oh,
camels.
kids love.
You know,
Kids,
so-
yes, the kids were interested.
I know, really, and so we have a new
Look at this hell, I
location.
love it.
Yeah.
We have a new location for the camels, they got put there this year, they absolutely love the new location. And they can be seen from the street very easily, they're just this side of the creek. And so they're just gonna love their new location, that they had last year, and then with the cannon on the other side. But anyway, you can't take the camels out. Yes, I can cut the cost, but you're losing your camels if I cut the cost.
I think that brings a lot of people in.
I think it does too.
The fact that you can see them from the,
Right. When we get down to the benches of $200 to be built by maintenance, community council will pay that expense. That is to take place of those hay bales that we get for the
Native American.
Native Americans when they come in the leaping. And last year I covered them up as well as I could, but they got rained on. And you can't then go and feed them back to the horses. And I got them from Miss Fowler. So I ended up having to pay for that and then donating it to 4-H. Why don't we just build these benches that can be used for multiple events and just put, some benches out there, not backs? Because we're going back to the
bench.
1800s, early 1900s, just a seat to sit on.
do we have a
And-
place to store them if we do that?
I'm hoping that Philip will have a place to store them over in maintenance someplace.
And by the way, they did a very nice, maintenances who built the benches and the tables for the restaurant, the outside
Oh,
patio.
okay.
And did all the woodwork and all the burn work, with the logos and stuff on it, so they've definitely got the skill to do it.
Awesome. But we just really wanted to make sure that you understood what the costs were. So this job of David Boxes is really pretty big to raise the money. Because if we're talking about, us giving them to the restoration committee, this 60-40 split, then, that's an area of negotiation, by the way, when we get down to it. We have to go beyond that $15,000. David Box has got to raise $25,000 for the event or more.
And you're gonna have to help him do that, so he knows what has to do for this, and give him all your help, because this is his first time,
Right.
this is his first trip. Next
That's
year,
what I
he'll,
say, you need to report on us kind of a little bit to make sure
Yeah.
we're meeting goals and mileposts, so
Okay.
we don't get to the
Where-
end and decide
Where
we're
you
short.
had Jody backing everyone last year, we have Monique and Rihanna for daily operations, but we don't ask them to do all this extra stuff.
Right.
We are here to back up David Box, so, and we've told him this. So, be careful. Don't overwhelm him, because he can be overwhelmed.
Yes, you can.
Especially with something like this, not, next year he'll be an expert, it'll be a second rodeo.
That's
So
right.
he'll be able to,
Exactly.
he'll be more helpful, but he's got lots and lots of good ideas, but he's gonna need your help as far as sources and so forth.
Yeah. I worked with David on the spaghetti dinner last year, so I think we have a good relationship.
He's an easy guy to work with.
Oh, yeah.
So then we get down to the profits. $37.50 is held in reserve for the 2016 event. 60% is given to Fort Clark Springs Historical Building Restoration and Repair Committee for use to make improvements and repairs to historical buildings on the fort. And then 40% given to Community Council for the support of educational activities, scholarships, Bridge Clubs, donations to Kinney County Church Alliances, and Shafter Hall electricity grant. I would say that that is an area of negotiation.
We'll start the negotiations.
Well, unless you guys don't have a problem with the 64.
I don't see have a problem with it, because the fort's benefiting the fort here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
And now that we've got the restoration committee actively approved, they're ready to go with their funds.
They are.
They're ready to go with their funds, and I don't have a problem with this either. And since you use it for scholarships anyway, maybe it can absorb that one.
I should think that we would be able to, if you guys are absorbing that event insurance, that will then free up the Fort Clark Days being able to absorb, the other as well. And that's basically it. I put down there what the Fort Clark Springs Community Council is a 501c3 organization, and by carrying on Fort Clark Days, we are actually meeting 4 of our goals as far as that 501c3 goes.
okay, so we're approving this with the
Well,
preface of the bridge deal. We need to see about the bridge, what's going on with the
And the
bridge.
electrical.
And the
can you
electrical.
just retype this?
I did not put in, I made some changes, but I did not put in about that we would present a plan to be approved in parts or whole. You want me to put it that
Well,
way?
we can conditionally approve, I would think, all of it except for.
Right now, we're not gonna approve it as, I mean, we're gonna approve it with the exceptions, right? And you
Right.
can bring those back to us, or we can do it, but
Okay.
it's conditionally approved, though, it's go, right?
It is, it will allow us then to make some, to do some.
Yeah, but I
things.
mean, I've got a copy that's been scratched off here and added here and stuff like that. I'm just saying if you could just give us a clean copy,
I can give you a clean copy. I'll
Without.
email it to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, because we'll need the correct amount for the Fort Clark Days insurance.
Okay,
And confirmation that Warren knows we're gonna be building the bridge.
okay.
And some more
Okay.
specifics on the electrical.
And the electrical.
The electrical.
yeah, a plan needs to be submitted to the,
Well, do we need to-
submitted and approved.
Do we need to do anything, or just tell her we approve this conditionally, and you'll have the next one to us by the next meeting, right?
Yes, but we
Yes.
still need, I move we approve this conditionally.
Okay,
Well, I-
Second.
thank you.
All in favor?
Awesome.
Carries
Then we can
unanimously
move
that
forward.
Fort Clark Springs has entered into a conditional memorandum of agreement with the Community Council for Fort Clark Days, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now,
Hopefully, we'll be able to add bigger and better things in the future to it.
That's
There have been some things that Fort Clark Springs is actually a question that you raised, and I may need to do this as a separate one. Yes, Fort Clark Springs Association has given us in kind in the past. You have given us 7 hotel rooms and 2 RV spaces at no charge. That was not in the memorandum of agreement because that's usually been done separately. How do you want me to handle that? And
Let's do it separately
The
again.
same way we've done it in
Very
the
good.
past. When you knew how many you needed, you brought it to the board and we voted to approve it.
Okay.
So next month,
And-
when you bring the revised version of
Go ahead and
this,
bring in the.
and then we can do a final improvement instead of a conditional, hopefully. And
Okay.
on the second part, because really motel rooms and stuff are kind of separate from the main
Right.
thing. This is,
Yeah.
And I would suggest that, and I don't know how it works with the 4th of July and Frontier Christmas or anything the city is doing, but if it's good for the area, it's good for the fort. The fort needs to have, we all need to be skipping down the garden path together. Is it easier for community council to work with the fireworks and things like that than it is the fort directly, or not? I don't, It's a question because of the 501c3 deal and all that stuff. I don't know if it is or not.
I know that one thing that we would request in the future for 4th of July and all these other special events is that the fort be given at least 90-day notice of these things so that we can help. And
Even
so
if
we
you think that you
Yeah.
told us before, do it again.
Yeah, because giving us a letter right after the 4th of July last year and then expecting us to remember and jump in and say, where are you guys? Are you gonna do this? What
Well,
we
there's-
need from you is 90-day notice. And we talked about this with David Box, and 90-day notice is fairly common in a lot of.
There's gonna be a new board
coordination.
next year anyway, that won't all have been through the drill that we were this year.
We're trying to lay
So-
down something in writing on everything so that if the
Continuity.
next board coming in doesn't reinvent.
Yes.
Right, and we don't want it to come down to the last end and be a tailspin again. We want it to be, even if we got to partner with you ahead of time, or however it'll work out for the benefit of everybody, so there's no panic at the last moment.
Right, you know.
'Cause we need to-
most of the
I
stuff's
think
gotta go through David.
Kenny County needs to put on a lot more events than we're putting on. Orchestrated by everybody or anybody, but there just needs to be more awareness of Kenny County, and Bracketville and Fort Clark are about the only things in Kenny County. I mean, Spofford's not having a heyday yet, but they may.
Don't forget REA.
They're in.
Fort Clark Days is March 6th and March 7th, 2015. Doug Baum is going to be thrilled because he is a camel person. He's going to be thrilled to hear that there will be an event, as long as we can find a chair.
Yeah, that's,
But he can get it on. He had 4 camels here last year, and only charged us for 2. I don't know if they'll be able to do that this year, but that was pretty
what were
awesome.
those dates again?
March 6th and 7th.
Six, okay.
6th and 7th, Friday and Saturday.
So Monday.
Do we
you're
run
gonna-
into the
It's
annual
Texas
events probably
Independence
again?
Day, is it?
Pardon me?
Do we run into,
Oh, no, we do not. That's actually the first weekend. That is our weekend on the historical circuit. That is our weekend. The second weekend is the women's weekend at Fort Concho, and it's a big one. So last year, you may have noticed, we had no women here, other than the, Fort Concho actually has like a teen group, and they brought them down.
Yeah, they
I
were
was
here.
very surprised that they were here. They were actually awesome, and I hope they are back this year, because on school day and for school day, for our kids to be able to see, you don't have to be an old fogey to be a living historian. You can be quite young. And hopefully we'll get the Boy Scouts back again this year from Corpus Christi as well. So-
Is there, while we're still talking about Fort Clark Days, this may be the dumbest idea anybody ever had, but we had a little circus carnival up here at, just this side of the beer joint. 4 or 5 years ago, they came in for 1 or 2 days, and they set up in that field. Is there any way we could get a little circus or a carnival for a day or 2 while we're having Fort Clark Days, either in Brackett or here, or, I don't know where you go to find those
I don't know where you
people.
go to find out. I'm not a clue.
The internet.
Well, that's, I mean, that would be, I don't know if it's prohibited for them to come here, but it would give kids something else to do besides,
Right.
Well,
you know, maybe draw more people in, because, well, we don't just have living historians, we can look at them, and then the kids can ride on
Yeah,
the
so you would
Ferris
actually
wheel
want to
or-
have it on grounds?
Well, I don't know, across the street at Brackett over there, or James Lot, or somewhere's
I
here.
don't think we have
close.
anywhere for that, but it would be nice
Oh, the
if
fair,
maybe.
the airport, it'd fit?
be up to
It'd
the
be a little
city?
far, but,
Be up to the city on that.
Yeah, I think the city or the county probably has an area large enough, and then that would spread some of the wealth into the city and the county too, without us having to, I'm sure carnivals have their own insurance, but you're still talking about some place to put it, a way to get there, and so
well, the only
forth.
thing is, if you have a carnival in town, you're gonna have vendors, food vendors, which are gonna take away
Take away
from
from
here,
the
because they're in the
area.
carnival with the kids, let's eat here, we don't wanna go over there and eat that.
May I make a complimentary suggestion to that? There are independent balloon bounces and parabounce companies that could easily set up something. Yes, kids would like to bounce around and do something better, but to bring in full-scale rides and things of such nature
Yeah.
are different. That could be set up easily at the park
I think that
course.
needs to be.
I've worked for these companies, they come in with their own staff and take, yeah. The Cinco de Mayo, Master Sergeant Cruz loaned me his balloon bounce from Unit 15, God bless his soul. And I set it up over there and ran it by myself. It's real easy. Just make sure they don't stake them down into our new sprinkler system. And there's a little thing for let the kids jump around. Approach some of those event bounce.
Well, just something to maybe help
To keep 'em
expand
here.
a little bit,
Right.
you know.
To keep them on this side of the fence, we can't.
Beat it
discourage
around
them.
and see if we can
Yeah. It would be nice to be able to add something up into the par 3 golf course. I mean, I don't know if that's even a possibility, or that area where the helicopter lands, you know, something up over that way. But again, you're looking at that insurance issue with something like that.
Those
And let me tell you right away, bounce castles have huge liability attached to them. I mean,
So, I don't, maybe we
For
can
good
get
reason.
more petting
They-
zoo up
they
in that
have more
area or
babies
something
and
like
I
that,
thought they were-
so.
Something to
petting
look
zoo,
at.
that's a really good idea.
Yeah, we had one last year with 4-H. The living historians were, some of the living historians were a little bit upset because of that blue tent that was in the middle of the field. But that was also there, if we had a big crowd, to keep children occupied while, you know, some of the living historians were so busy talking. The
That's-
weather was an issue,
Yeah.
so, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
that,
so much.
Thank you very much.
yes, do we need to vote to go into executive session or not for
Yes.
matters on personnel?
Yes. No, we just have to go.
Just adjourn to.
Okay, it's 20 minutes at 12. I think I get the right hour.
Yep.
We're gonna go to executive session to discuss personnel issues.
Thank you.